Hello again, students. If you're watching this, it means that you are on day 3 of writing, and you are in the process of drafting your introduction and your body paragraphs. You started drafting yesterday, and you're finishing up today. Those of you who drafted quickly and finished yesterday can take the time today to do some revising and really think about your evidence. This video is all about how to set up and unpack evidence. And I usually don't use the word unpack. I use the word link, or I might say explain. But now that we're doing more research-based writing, persuasive writing, where we're really looking at a lot of expert facts to prove our point, we need to think about when our evidence needs to be unpacked with a link. And some evidence is going to need more of a link than others. And we're going to do a quick activity to kind of practice that. But just know that when you are setting up evidence from an expert fact, you need to make sure that you're using a transition like one of these. This chart is attached to the instructions for day 3. So you want to make sure that when you're introducing the evidence, especially if the evidence is a direct quote, if you're quoting directly from an article, you're lifting it and you're writing it word for word, you need to introduce it with something like this. According to, you can do author. Most of our articles are from Newsela, so you can just say according to Newsela. In an article I read, it says, in the text, you can actually do the title, exact title of the article. And then this last one, which is specifically experts say. I like that one a lot. So that's how you set up, introduce your evidence, okay? And I just want to remind you that I am looking for direct quotes. As I was looking at everyone's digital notebooks today to look at your planning pages to see your evidence, I noticed that quite a few of you were copying and pasting directly from Newsela, but only a few of you actually remembered to include the quotation marks around the evidence. So it's very important. You cannot just take something from the article and throw it in your essay and call it your own. It either needs to be paraphrased in your own words, or it needs to have quotation marks around it, and you must use something like this to set it up. Now, once you have set up and written your evidence, you then need to unpack it with a link, okay? And we've done this before. We've been doing it every time we've written an essay. We talk about the importance of a link. And it's basically unpacking, linking back your evidence to your claim. Why does your evidence support your claim? And then these are some of the transitions that you can use. This shows, this is important because, let me just see here. This proves my point because, this makes it clear that, basically this means. So these are some transitions we've practiced in the past, but I'm just reminding you that you have to use these links after you talk about your evidence to explain why it proves your point. You need a minimum of 1 link per body paragraph. That goes without saying. A minimum 1 link per body paragraph at the end of the paragraph after you've listed your evidence. That being said, there are times when certain types of evidence really don't need a link because it's so strong and it's so closely related to your reason and your claim that it kind of speaks for itself. And there are times when the evidence is kind of abstract and it's really not very closely related, and you're going to have to do a link to really explain what it means and why it supports your claim. So I have an example of that. And I'm noticing that it's getting a little bit faded. The dry erase came off. But here we go. Okay. So focusing on the marine otter this time, all right? So our claim is, okay, we need to save the marine otter because it is an important species. Okay, so the marine otter is actually a keystone species, which popped up in one of the articles about the marine otter. In case you haven't realized it, if you search your animal in the Newsy LA search bar, chances are more than one article besides the first article that you read will pop up, and you will be able to see other articles on that same animal. So I actually looked at both articles. I looked at the marine otter article that was in the Newsy LA text set, and I searched for it in the search bar in Newsy LA, and another article popped up. So that's our claim. Okay, it's a keystone species, which means that it's very important to the ecosystems. Okay, and these are my 3 pieces of evidence. So what we want to kind of do is we want to look at each one and think, which one do we really need links for? And which ones can we kind of get away without including a link? Okay, so let's look at the first one. Okay, the first one says they are a predator, so they have to keep their prey in good numbers. So you might start off by saying, my first piece of evidence for this is the otter is a predator, so they have to keep their prey in good numbers. Link? No link? I say link, and here's why. Perhaps your reader doesn't understand why it's important to have the right amount of predator and prey in an ecosystem. So you might link that, unpack that by saying, basically this proves my point because in an ecosystem, if you don't have the right amount of predator and prey, the ecosystem will collapse. And that's why the otter is an important species. Let's look at the next one. If they die off, the food chain in their ecosystems will collapse. Link? No link? No link. This one speaks for itself. So I might put these together, right? And I might say, we need to save the marine otter because it is important, as it is an important species. My first piece of evidence for this is, and this proves my point because, another piece of evidence for this is, if they die off, the food chain in their ecosystem will collapse. Moving right along, my final piece of evidence for this is, so again, this one is so strong and it really speaks for itself, I don't think we need a link for it. Let's look at this last one. Oop, here we go. Islands without sea otters had huge sea urchins. They consumed every kelp plant in sight. Okay, what do you think? Link, not a link? I bet a lot of you are confused. And those of you who are confused, you're confused because this really needs a link. Like, what does this have to do with this? So if you were writing about this, you would need to have a link here. And you might say something like, what this means is that sea otters are responsible for eating sea urchins. If there's too many sea urchins, they will eat all of the kelp. And you may or may not know that kelp is really important to the ocean. So this right here, this quote would definitely need a link. You would need to explain what this has to do with this. So these 3 pieces of evidence work well with this particular claim. You definitely have to unpack this one. You don't need to unpack this one at all. And this one you may or may not have to unpack. But bottom line, every body paragraph must have at least one link at the end. And that's it for tonight. And my daughter has been watching very closely and very patiently, so without interrupting. So there she is. That's right. She's making a cameo. Say hi.
Hi.
Say, introduce yourself.
I'm Alice, and I'm 3 years old.
Try again.
4 years old.
That's right. All right. Take care.